So glad to have you back and watching or listening to Curiosity Not Judgment. Welcome. My name is Birga.
And I'm Gary.
Now, we admittedly did miss a week. I was in Europe and we had a really hard time connecting with our time zones, and so I apologize that we've missed a week, but this one will be posted late, but it'll be posted. So here we go. We wanted to continue on our conversation about AI. It was such a rich conversation last time, and we just skimmed the surface. I thought we needed to go a little bit deeper today.
Yeah, and I've had a ton of conversations since then too, and some feedback around AI and our little podcast. And again, let's just parenthetically right up front say that we are not experts in this.
Not even close.
I've messed around with machine learning and blockchain and some other things as the founder of the Albuquerque Blockchain Alliance. But I can tell you that this is, we're at the beginnings. And that's why it makes for a good curiosity, not judgment discussion.
Absolutely. So we had talked a little bit about AI last time, what it is, what it does, how it's being used, and we can already see the writing on the wall a little bit about how far-reaching this is going to become in our work life, in our school life, in all aspects of the things that we do with technology. And so I found myself thinking about what credit do we have to give to artificial intelligence in terms of authorship or ownership of intellectual property or of the actual written material. And specifically, I was thinking about, we had touched on the fact that I had asked an AI application to write a post about our blog, and I read it to you after we finished recording, and you said, wow, that really does sound like it's in your voice, because I had added some key themes that I wanted it to include. So if we're using that premise that we as individuals have a tone of voice in the things that we write, in the way that we phrase questions, and the things that we do, if we are putting the input points, the data points, into an AI software, asking it to generate something on our behalf, who gets the intellectual property for that?
So there's so much there.
I know.
My mind instantly goes to why are you ever writing a research paper, and why do you need to cite references? And I go to the classroom, and I was just at my grandson's graduation from college, by the way, makes me feel old, this last weekend, and the subject came up because students are starting to use AI to write papers.
I'm sure.
So what is the purpose of writing a paper? Why does a professor give an assignment to write a paper?
So that you do the research, you read lots of materials, you generate thoughts and conclusions surrounding the content that you have now absorbed on this particular topic.
So, good answer. So in that regard, what is an AI engine like ChatGPT doing that is circumventing that?
It is doing the reading for you, right?
It's doing the writing.
Well, and the reading in theory, right? Because if it is generating content from 8, 10, 15 sources in a split second, it's eliminated you needing to sit down and read books or articles, for 15 hours and then writing your own thesis.
So it's doing the research.
Yeah.
And it's doing the writing.
Yep.
In good English.
Yep, presumably.
So what that means is if I'm giving you an assignment to write a paper and I want your thoughts and your research and your writing, depending if it's English class or some other poetry class or art appreciation class, then it's doing almost all of the above?
I would think so.
So is it illegal to turn in a paper that's been generated by AI?
I think it's going to really come down to college policy or school policy, and I think they're going to actually have to write policy around this.
And does a professor know that you've turned in something that's been generated by AI?
Well, if you have had other materials turned in and you've all of a sudden have a much higher quality paper, probably. But I mean, yeah, who's to know if you begin a course and start using AI from day one and use it all the way through? How could a professor possibly know your voice, your language versus that of an AI generated report.
So my grandson who just graduated college and his fiance said that the professors have ways to check.
Oh, do they? Okay.
So they have their own versions of AI or versions of whatever that check for things being written by
Interesting.
AI. I was not aware of that. So, because I'm not in college.
So you input an AI produced paper to some sort of AI software saying, is this created by AI?
Apparently, there's some systems right now where you insert a paper that's written electronically, or scan, I guess, I don't know, and it looks for plagiarism.
That I've heard.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's just a natural extension of that.
Interesting. Wow.
So plagiarism takes many forms.
Yeah.
You can copy out of an encyclopedia, like I tried not to do when I was a kid,
Right.
which shows how old I am, with my set of Britannica on my bookshelf or at the library. Or you can copy from an article that someone else wrote, or you can put it into ChatGPT.
Right.
So if your paper has been determined that it's been written by AI, what credit should you get for that?
Yeah, I mean, my off the cuff answer would be none. You should get no credit for that. But I don't know. This is where the curiosity comes in, right? I think this is going to be a deeply complex issue.
So for millennia, students have argued that why do I need to memorize these equations when I can look them up
Sure.
in the real world in the future?
Right.
And then when calculators came around, why can't I use my calculator on the test? I'm going to have this on the work site
Right.
when I eventually use this on my job, if I'm ever going to use this on my job. And then computers, same thing. Well, so the natural extension of that argument is if I know how to access an AI engine and I know what the right questions to ask it and I produce what you want, then how have I failed? Shouldn't I get some credit for doing that process?
Yeah, this is going to be such a complicated mess, and I'm so glad I'm not in college administration. Oh my goodness.
Well, and
But
so,
it's going to be in the workforce.
and it will be in the workforce also. Now,
yeah.
It's all over the workforce
Yeah.
already. People are already using it to write proposals
Yep.
and to write all kinds of things. And one could make the argument. Now, you are never learning the things that are the inputs. So you're going to get into situations. If, let's say I went to college, I started my freshman year this fall, and I never wrote a paper on my own. I always had an AI engine do it. I'm going to be at a severe disadvantage.
Oh, absolutely.
In that I don't even understand how to put sentences together,
Right.
articulate a point, make 3 points in a paper,
Right.
whatever. I won't be able to communicate properly. I won't be able to put together a speech, a presentation on my own. Now, you can still make the argument, well, you won't need to, but at some point we have to learn.
Yeah.
And this is why, we start out with kids in elementary school and have them write 2 + 2 on a piece of paper equals 4. Or we have them do, complex fractions or, division of fractions so that they at least know what's behind those things that are going on in the calculator and the computer. How do you do that with respect to AI? And is it going to be just something that's done in elementary school, maybe through high school if you can control your high schoolers, any different than your college students? Is it just going to be relegated to that, and you got to get your 3 R's, your reading, writing, arithmetic, in, and after that, who knows? There's always a race in these things like cyber.
Right.
The hackers make some progress, well, the anti-hackers make some progress. So that's the same thing's going to happen here with AI. The plagiarism detectors that are now enhanced to detect AI are going to make some progress. Well, the AI is going to make further progress and back and forth. And so there's going to be some give and take there. But, if a professor says to a student, I don't want you using AI, well, then by all rights, the student should go back to their dorm room, write the paper, and not use AI.
Yeah, absolutely. But so what about on the professional field? When you're interacting with clients and maybe you have used AI to draft a proposal, and you have used AI to write your resume. You have whatever the case may be. Is it disingenuous? Is it not actually presenting you, your skills, and your talents? Or is it demonstrating a different skill and talent because you know how to go out and get this material produced in such a way that it's, putting a very professional foot forward? I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. And again, there's certain fields I'm glad I'm not in. I'm glad not to be in HR. If you're having to be the one to screen through candidates, not knowing really who's putting their own effort in front of you in terms of a resume, a cover letter, an initial introduction to the company versus having a machine brain generate it.
In the work world, I think you get credit for using any tool at hand. We don't ask people to handwrite their resumes.
Sure.
We ask them, and there's resume writers out there.
Absolutely.
That do this even before AI. There's certainly templates and things like that. I think in the work world, using the tools that you have at hand is fine. Now let's differentiate between what the AI person or AI engine writes for your resume from truth from fiction.
Sure, certainly.
So it can't embellish. It can articulate things in a really cool way that maybe you weren't capable of.
Sure.
But it should be articulating the things that you actually have experience in.
So again, just being curious about this though, if you have a machine that knows keywords, key phraseology that is going to be the thing that gets your resume to the top of the pile or your cover letter to the top of the pile, which there's lots of firms out there that are using technology to pre-screen candidates, what happens to the folks that try to do it the traditional way? Are they just out of luck? Is it too bad for them because either they elect not to or they don't know about the technology to use a computer program or an AI application to, get their materials in front of the right set of eyes? I don't know, it just seems somehow stacked and unfair to me.
Interesting comment. I would tell you that process has been stacked and unfair by those standards for all time.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, you and I have resources that many people don't, and we would use them. Even if let's put AI aside and just go back to when you and I were writing resumes. We would say, okay, we would hand that out to a few friends and say, hey, would you review this for me? What if you don't have those kinds of friends who are capable of doing that?
Yeah.
So I think that the advantage is going to go to people who know how to use tools and use them effectively, and resources in general and effectively, no matter what.
Yeah.
And AI is just another tool. I think that's the key here. AI is just another tool. Now, it's a significant tool, but it's just another tool.
So then I think about kind of the next phase if we're talking about RFP submissions, so requests for proposals. So you're a company and you make widgets or you build things or you design things. And so a government body or some sort of an entity wants to collect RFPs, a request for proposals from various companies to submit, what can you do for me? What's going to be your cost, etc. And so if that's going through the AI process, and again, you've got a very informed computer program knowing exactly key phrases, especially if it's a government body, right? Let's use the city of Albuquerque as an example. That's where we live. If the city of Albuquerque has put out an RFP for, I don't know, construction on a new community center, right? So maybe you've got 10 available firms that have enough manpower, enough materials, enough bandwidth to be able to complete this project. 6 of those are very tech savvy and they utilize AI to generate, the response to the RFP. But maybe you've got 4 companies that are kind of more mom and pop that could do the work and could do the work well, but they're not on the AI bandwagon, right? And are they immediately eliminated because the computer savviness knows the key phrases, the key things that the city's looking for based on all of the information that it can scan in a nanosecond? Are mom and pop shops out again? They've been scrapping for survival this whole time anyway, but is just this another blow to them?
You said it, and it was the same thing with resume writing. The people who have access to the tools are going to use them, and it's going to be to their advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can say, well, that's not fair. what's the definition of the word fair? If a company successfully uses AI for a proposal, that same company is probably going to successfully use AI to communicate to all the stakeholders, to get better input from those stakeholders, and to get a better product for the city at the end of the day. So one could argue that it should go to the people who have the best overall proposal, even if AI was involved.
So, all right, just this is our curiosity time over AI. Do you see, aside from it being a tool that maybe not everyone can take advantage of, and some of the mom and pop organizations may be at a clear disadvantage, do you see a negative aspect of this maybe in a field that I'm not considering?
Well, look, again, there's always, let's go back to data. There's always good uses of data and bad uses of data. There's always good uses of AI and bad uses of AI. There's always going to be advantages and disadvantages of different folks in any given situation, and especially in any human organization. It's just going to be. The AI is going to be prevalent and already is in everything. I don't have direct data on this, but I was told that we used AI in our last grant submission in our company.
Oh, interesting.
So if that's true, or I'm assuming it's true, since that's what I was told, then it's already out there. And you have, I would say that unless you're hiding under a rock, you've probably been subject to something that was written or produced with AI already.
Yeah.
So again, as we discussed last time, it's not if, it's not can we control it, it's when, and no, we can't. And now, do we need to regulate it? It depends on the use. And this is the whole next question, right? Should we and how do we regulate? Two very different answers or different questions. Should we regulate AI? Well, I guess they're related, because the next question is, well, then how do you do it? I guess if it's harming someone, if it's causing damage to someone in some way, then we should probably try to regulate its use in certain circumstances. I'm not sitting here coming up with one right now where one could claim damages, but I'm assuming that you could claim damages if AI was used in a bad way. I just don't know how that would happen. And first of all, you'd have to prove that AI was used.
Right.
Second of all, you'd have to say that you had damages as a result.
Well, let's go back to the mom and pop shop competing for a contract. If they can say or prove in some manner, hey, the last 25 contracts have been awarded to companies that have used AI for proposal submission, and we have been overlooked time and time and time again, is that not damages, so to speak, that has been inflicted upon them because of AI?
You're describing damages. Now you're making the assumption that they don't have access to the AI.
Right. Yeah. True. Again, it's a tool, and who gets to use it? How do they get to use it? I grant you that.
I mean, I don't think you could say that I should be awarded damages if my computers are all 20 years old and my internet connection's bad.
Sure. Yeah. No, good point.
So I think that, again, back to it's a tool. If I have access to a tool and I can be more efficient, effective in the use of that tool, well, in business, I think that works.
There have been so many movies that have been made in the last probably 30 or 40 years that have almost anticipated what happens when the AI outsmarts the human being or feels that they know better than the human being knows. And so, what you're talking about, how do we control it? How do we limit it? That is a little bit of a scary thought. And I'm not necessarily jumping into some doomsday scenario where the computers take over and we're, forced to eat certain things. But at this point, it's not beyond the realm of possibility.
That's funny that you went to forced to eat certain things. That's a hilarious symptom that you're worried about. I'd be worried about other things, but yeah, that's a good one. Look, with respect to HAL from 2001, which was the first time I was forced to think about this, when I was a kid watching that movie and seeing Hal, take over the ship, which was a computer and anticipated it was sci-fi at the time. To what's the latest one where they're out in outer space and the computer takes over the ship? I can't think of it right now, but Eva. Anyway, but those we've been anticipating things for a long time that are going to happen, and now they're happening. There is going to be a time when a computer makes a decision that is not what the original human who created that thing intended.
Yeah.
And it's we are somewhere between it's already happened, weeks away or years away, but we're not centuries away.
No, I agreed.
And I would say we're probably on the order of years away. And what are we going to do when that happens? I think there, just like we've chosen to set up our government, there just needs to be checks and balances. AI and computer learning, machine learning, quantum computing, all those things that can think faster than we do, which is the first time we've created something that can think faster than we do, we are going to have some check and balance on it. And the deal is, at what point are checks and balances important, and when are they important, and how are we going to implement that? So let's just go back to self-driving cars.
Okay.
The classic argument against self-driving cars that use, very fast computing is, okay, fine, programmer. The EV is driving down the street, and all of a sudden a kid runs out in front of the car, and an old grandma runs out in front of the car. Which one are you going to pick? And these kinds of false, arguing from the extremes they can be instructful. I'm not saying that they're ridiculous, although that one probably is on the more ridiculous side. But the point is it still going to make a better decision than a human can? And can it do it faster? And maybe can it avoid the situation altogether?
Yeah, and then how do you begin to teach ethics and
morality? That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So at some point, we are not going to like the decisions that computers come to, because they can think faster than we can, they can absorb data faster than we can, they can interpret big data faster than we can, they can look at trends faster than we can. When we start having AI doing our stock trades, right? But I have to tell you, my dad and I programmed an old Apple IIe with a cassette tape storage on 3 equations that my dad came up with based on sine wave theories about how to buy pork bellies, futures, right? And so, did that mean we shouldn't have a chance to play because we were able to do that?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So at some point, we just need to figure out what's the proper checks and balances to make sure that we don't have machines making decisions that we believe are bad for society.
Well, and okay, going with you there. I know we're about out of time, but absolutely, we need checks and balances. But what happens when the machine says, yeah, I don't think I need that, and I ain't powering down, and I'm not going to, adhere to your command because you, human, don't know as much as I know.
That's going to happen sometime in the future. And then we are going to have to make sure that those computers are unpluggable. And that's going to be the big deal. To me, the answer to AI is never give AI to a machine that we're worried about this happening. I'm not worried about it happening yet, but that we're worried about this happening that has a battery backup. So I can't just unplug it.
Okay, so for anybody in this field that's listening, that is our request, right? At the end of the day, if you're going to add AI to a machine, you had better make sure that baby can get unplugged.
Well, and that's how we got rid of HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that's how the ship full of people out in space gets over that the computer that took over that ship. But that was before we had long-term battery storage, right? And so we're really going to have to think about how do we keep the proper checks and balances on AI. And the bigger question is, what morality are we going to put in those checks and balances, and what morality are we going to put into AI? Because I think that is a confusing question in and of itself these days.
I feel like this is several layers beyond my pay grade. We will leave you to be curious about that, and we'll come back next week. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us. As always, your comments, your feedback is welcome. Maybe you've got some thoughts of your own about AI, good, bad, or indifferent. We'd like to hear from you. So curiosity.judgement.com, or of course, you're welcome to comment on any of the platforms that you are viewing or listening on. So until next time, have a good one.
Take care.